Shavua Tov, rebellion in the wilderness. Korach and members of the tribe of Reuven, Datan and Aviram, come with an accusation against Moses. They say to him, the entire congregation is holy, God is in their midst, why should you be exalted above the congregation? This is a rebellion that the great Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik termed a common sense rebellion. What is the answer to this accusation? I believe there are two answers in the course of the parasha, and we will examine them both, especially the second one, which is something that should resonate with all of us as we continue our journey through life. Let's first understand what were the accusations. Each of the participants in this rebellion had their own personal beef. Korach was the son of Yitzhar, who was the eldest son of Kahat. And he felt, therefore, that after Moses is going to be the king and Aharon is going to be the high priest, he should have the next highest position as the leader of the tribe of Levi. However, he was passed over for this position in favor of Elitzaphan, the son of Uziel, who was the youngest of the four brothers who were the sons of Kahat. So Korach had a personal beef. But of course, he translates his personal beef into a matter of higher ethical importance. And he says the entire congregation is holy. Let's do away with this whole family thing altogether. Let it be an entire meritocracy. Whoever's going to serve in the Mishkan should have some other criteria to be accepted other than simply lineage. And the same argument was made with the tribe of Reuven, who had their own beef, because they were the descendants of Reuven, who was the eldest son of Jacob. Therefore, their tribe, they felt, should be the ones to serve in the sanctuary, not Levi. And if you're going to say that Reuven had been disinherited from his birthright by Jacob, well, Levi also was criticized by Jacob for what he had done together with Shimon in the city of Shechem. He was not blessed, so why is Levi okay and Reuven not? So therefore, let's do away with the whole tribe system. Let it be a meritocracy. And large numbers of the Israelites who joined in this rebellion, they said something else. Let it be the firstborn who serve in the sanctuary. That way you'll have unity. The firstborn were supposed to be doing it originally, but because they sinned at the golden calf, it was taken away from them and given to the tribe of Levi. But let's bring back the firstborn. We'll have unity. Every tribe will be represented. So it was all common sense. What is the answer? Well, the first answer is basically God saying, this is my decision and it is not your decision and you must accept it. Why is that so? Because God gave the Torah and he gave us the commandment to build the Mishkan in the first place. The Mishkan is a representation, a window, if you will, into the upper worlds, into God's throne, as it were. And therefore, it has to be made according to God's specifications. Otherwise, it is a falsification. Lahavdil, if one of us would have our picture put up on social media after having been photoshopped to make us look other than we look, we would be quite offended. So, lahavdil, the same thing. What the Mishkan contains, every single utensil made there, from the Holy Ark till the curtains and everything else, had to be made exactly according to God's specifications, and thus it was made by Bezalel. And not only the actual building and the utensils therein have to be precise, the service of God has to be precise. We can't wake up one morning and say, I have a great idea for a new sacrifice. Let's do something different, let's do something extra, let's do it nicer, let's do it bigger, let's do more of it, whatever it might be. That's also not acceptable. As a matter of fact, 2 people tried it, and their names were Nadav and Avihu, and they were consumed by fire. No good. And the third element is not only the Mishkan itself and its utensils and what is done therein, but the who is also God's decision. And that is proven in this week's Parsha, when Moses again tells the multitude who are interested, bring incense. Same thing that Nadav and Avihu brought. And see what happens. And they get consumed by a fire before the Lord as well. To show you that God is telling you, the Mishkan is about me and what my spheres are like and how the world is to understand me, and you have no right to put your own impressions into it, because that would be a misrepresentation and a falsification. So on the one level, the answer is basically, this is my decision and you don't have the right to discuss it. However, God perhaps recognizes that the people will feel unsatisfied with that answer. It's like, when you ask, when you're a little child and you ask your parents something and the parent says, because I said so. That is not always a satisfying answer. So God therefore has the second answer. And the second answer is very fascinating. God says that, okay, relating especially to the choosing of the tribe of Levi, I will now give every tribe the opportunity to be the chosen tribe. Each tribe shall bring a staff, place it in the sanctuary, and we will see whose staff will be chosen. And Aharon will bring his staff on behalf of the tribe of Levi. And of course, the next morning, Moses goes in and finds that Aharon's staff has blossomed with flowers, with branches, with fruits. And the others did not. And each of the representatives of the tribes take their staffs and go. What was this particular test about, and what was it explaining to us? Something very profound. You see, we could ask a fundamental question here. What difference does it make if Reuven was disinherited by Jacob, or if Levi wasn't blessed by Jacob? Isn't this a new generation? What do I care what happened way back then? Not only that, the Meshech Chochmah says that the question was even more poignant because when it comes to the kingdom, there we do find that it is a meritocracy. We know that we have the Davidic dynasty, but the Davidic dynasty is expressly conditioned in the prophets, it says so, on David's descendants following the word of the Lord. If they stray from the path of the Torah, then it will be taken away from them. So that is a meritocracy, but we don't find that with Levi. Levi is going to be the tribe that serves in the Mishkan no matter what, forever. So what's the difference? Why should we be concerned about what happened with Reuven, who lived way before? Now it's a new generation. People are different, aren't they? And the answer is no. Because there's a big debate in the world about nature versus nurture. What creates personality? Is it genetics or is it education? And this debate will never properly be resolved because the scientists debating it are omitting perhaps the most crucial factor. Until the third verse comes to reconcile them. There is something called the neshama, a spirit. And the neshama comes from the parents to the children, but it also comes from God. God chooses what neshama is given to which people, to which person. Each and every individual gets their own little connection to the divine throne, which is where the neshama is hewn from. And as long as scientists don't recognize the neshama, which is something that cannot be seen or measured or studied, they will never understand all of the true factors that go into personality. And I believe that this is implicit in the idea that we will see the proper tribe in the form of a piece of wood, of a staff, which is like a tree. A tree is the same tree, no matter what. An apple tree is always going to give you apples. You can yell at it, you can threaten it, you can cajole it, you can bribe it. You can sprinkle it with orange juice. From now till next year, it won't grow any oranges. It'll still grow apples. And that is what we are learning about the tribes. That Reuven's character trait, which disqualified him from being the Bechor, remains. That's not to say that it's a bad character trait, but Reuven has other character traits which give him his unique status, as do each of the tribes. And I think that Levi had a unique character trait. And what was its unique character trait? Ahavat Yisrael, love of the Jewish people. Why did Levi go and attack the people of Shechem? Because of what had been done to his sister Dinah by the prince of Shechem, who had attacked her and raped her. So Levi was not going to tolerate any affront to the people, to the family of Israel. And the same thing with the golden calf, when the tribe of Levi not only did not worship the golden calf, but they actively fought against those who had, because they saw a responsibility to preserve and protect the nation of Israel and the God of Israel and our connection to him and his to us. So therefore they showed through their character that they are the ones to be in the sanctuary. Now there is something very beautiful which I saw in the name of a book called Mikra Mifurash. And he says the following. He says, you know what? Perhaps on a raw materials level, Korach was more spiritual than Aharon. He had more spiritual power than Aharon. But What does the verse say? God says to Moses, in describing this test of the staffs and seeing which one was going to blossom, God says to Moses, "The man whom I shall choose, his staff will blossom." Notice the order. It's not the man whose staff blossoms is the one whom I choose, but rather the other way. The man whom I choose, his staff will blossom. In other words, it is the choice of Aharon that causes his staff to blossom. Until it blossoms, it is wood. It has the genetic makeup, if you will, of apple tree wood, for example, and therefore when it does blossom, it's going to blossom with apple blossoms and apples eventually. But it takes an awareness that God gives the blessing for that tree to actualize its potential. And there is a lesson for us, that we have a spirit, we have a heritage, we are each a tree. And if we don't actualize ourselves, it's because we don't realize that God has given us, each and every one of us, our own unique blessing. But when we realize that blessing, then we can blossom and bloom like the tree of Aharon, each in our own unique way. God puts us here not for status. This was also part of the Korach rebellion, that Korach and his people disqualified themselves for two things. Number one, you will notice that they did not say, "we good, they bad." They just said, "they bad." They said, yes, the entire congregation is holy, but their focus was on who shouldn't be. Why should you, not them? Very negative. When you have that, that's already a red flag, and that's a disqualifier. Aharon never says, not them, not him, not her, not those. No, everything is always positive. His staff is in the midst of all of the other staffs there, and it blossoms and it blooms, precisely perhaps because it is in the midst, because Aharon is a great Ohev Yisrael. He loves Israel just as the tribe of Levi does. It's in his genes, it's in its very wood, its very essence, and it's going to give forth to those fruits as long as the blessing is there. So therefore, the first thing that disqualified Korach was the negativity. Not them, not him. To disqualify, to heap scorn upon, to attack. This is not the way of a leader. This is not the kind of leader that we need, not back then and not today either. Another thing is the distinction between the work and the position. You see, Moses, he didn't want the position. God had to twist his arm. But the work, meaning the development, the nurturing, the teaching of the Israelites, was a job that Moses certainly wanted to do, but he wasn't interested in the position. But Korach was interested in the position, because he sees it as positions, as honor. It's the difference between wanting to be a great actor or wanting to act greatly. And so that was the second thing. But the point that we all need to take home is that we should understand that we each have a job to do. It's not about our position. When we embrace the fruits that we have the potential to give and realize that God blesses us to fulfill that job, that task in this world, that creates the beauty, the flowers, the branches, the fruits. That's what creates a nation at peace, a nation of spirituality, a nation of greatness. Greatness doesn't necessarily mean headlines in the newspaper. Greatness is in each and every corner of the world which we inhabit. Shavua Tov.